Hello class, this is Ernie Reyna and this is my week 4 submission for MPA 594 with Dr. Sundstrom. So I've identified two agencies that have similar missions, one being a government agency and one being a private sector for-profit agency that have the same type of business model, if you will. First is called Expressions Performing Arts Center, which is located in the city of Paris, that offers a dance studio, classes like jazz and tap and hip hop, ballet. And then we have the City of Paris Community Services Department, which offers classes to the public, similar to what Expressions does for jazz, hip hop, ballet. Both run very similar, have similar missions that try to do the same type of thing. But we'll go into what their limitations are, how they are alike and how they're unalike. But these are the two agencies that I have selected. And so Graham Allison once asked about agencies that are similar in a private sector versus public. Are they alike in all unimportant respects? And to that, I would respond with a thesis that reads, regarding the two agencies I've picked, is that the Director of Community Services, whose name is Sabrina, has asked her assistant to consider operating her government-run dance studio like the private dance studio across Paris called Expressions Performing Arts Center, which she believes are fundamentally alike in all unimportant respects. And to support my thesis, I've identified three themes that will help defend that thesis. And so theme number one asks, how are the two agencies similar? Theme number two will ask, how are they different? And theme number three will ask, which is the most important of the two? So we'll discuss that, and I'll provide some theories that support that as well. And so theme one is, how are the two agencies similar? So similarities exist between the government agency program and the private agency in a couple different ways. First, on the political economy scale, we can look at these two agencies and say that they are both prone to recessions. The concept of recession does not, in one area or the other, it would hit both areas. And so it would make the government agency prone to losing funding, and it could actually drive the private agency out of business. Second concept is positive externalities. The dance studio is encouraging youth to better themselves, which gives them confidence, which makes them go out and do good things in the world. And that's both for the government agency as well as the private agency themselves. On the public administration side, we have three concepts or three theorists that really prove that the two are similar, in that it's Taylor, Weber, and Wilson. And with the three, it's really planning, it's really efficiency, it's really organizing, it's the way that the composition and the structure of the two agencies are very similar. With those three theorists are the ones leading the way. So now we ask theme two, how are the two agencies different? And there's a lot of concepts we can look at in different areas. And first, beginning again with political economy, in the way that the structures are. We look at the public agency, and something they must offer is full benefits to full-time employees, where you're not going to see that necessarily on the private side. And the public agency does not have to pay taxes, where the private agency does. And that's a big difference between the public and private. When we talk about budgets, one thing the government agency has to do is that it must have a annually approved budget by the city council. It must go through workshops to be vetted by the public and then finally approved by the city council. That doesn't necessarily have to happen on the private side. And when we talk about public administration, we can look at terms and concepts such as Wilson's dichotomy to explain the administration versus the politics side. There's the Constitution that basically is the founding documents of why the government is in place. There's the Pendleton Act that says that the government agency must hire qualified individuals. So there's no preferences, whereas the private agency can have more flexibility in hiring who they want. And then there's this marbled cake concept as well, where the government agency receives federal funding, but from different layers. Could be from the state, could be from the feds, and it just comes in different colors of money. So that is the main differences in the two agencies themselves. And finally, theme number three is, what is most important to the two agencies? And so depending on how we look at this, Appleby talked about governments being different, and really the approach they take. And with the government is that this program is going to continue even if funding is tight. So when we talk about budgets and political economy,
they're going to look for other ways to continue that program. And they may borrow money or transfer money from the general fund. They may find a select ways of doing these things. Whereas the private agency may not be able to continue, even though it's important. What's important to them is that they're successful and they're profitable. So that has a lot of the budgeting side of it and public financing come into play with making sure that their own private accounting is right and just. So that would be the most important, is that continuity on the government side and profitability on the private side.
And so we reviewed two agencies that were similar, one public, one private. We looked at a dance studio that is set up, and then we used Allison as our overarching theme and asked, are they alike in unimportant respects? I developed a thesis that talked about the director of community services and how she wanted to run the program just like a private entity. We went over three themes that help support that for both on the similarities, the differences, and what was really important. We wove in some examples from not only public administration, but from political economy, from budgeting, all on the GPA side, the general public administration, that kind of defended my themes and went from there. So that is my report, and I'll be happy to listen to any of your responses.